In this video, I'm going to show you how to work with the data file for your homework 3. The goal here is not to memorize the formulas, which I already gave you in this instructions document, but the goal is to learn how to read a demographic dataset and then how to pull the numbers we need into a separate sheet where we do our calculations cleanly. So first, before we calculate anything, I want you to understand what you're looking at. So I am on this sheet called data, or whatever the first sheet is called in your file. At the top, you can see the title, populations by single age, thousands. The last word matters, thousands. Every number in this table is in thousands of people. So if you see 180, that means about 180,000 people, not 180 individuals. We are going to keep the units exactly as they are. We don't multiply by 1,000. We don't convert anything. That's important because the growth rates and doubling time work uh, perfectly fine using thousands as units. So now let me explain the layout of the dataset. On the left side, we have the identifying columns, the country, sex, and year. After that, you see many columns labeled, from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, all the way to the, if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see that it ends with 100 plus. Those are ages. So the table is structured like this. Each row is one country, one sex, and one year. And the values across the row are the population counts for each single age. So let's read one row together slowly. I'm going to find a row that says, for example, Canada, female, and 2020, age 0. The number in that cell represents the number of females age 0 in Canada in 2020 in thousands. If I move column to 1, that's females at age 1. If I move column to 10, that's females age 10. The logic is the same all the way across. Now I want you to see something important about how demographers think about totals. The table is not giving us a single total population number directly. Instead, it gives us population counts by age. So if we want the total population for a country, say for United States, we have to build it. And conceptually, the logic is very simple. The total population for United States, for example, for the year 2020, is the sum of everyone at every age, including both women and men. So for 2020, the total population would be the sum of everything all the way to the right in these two um, rows. So all the way up to 100 plus for these two rows, female 2020, male 2020. In other words, if we add age 0 plus age 1 plus age 2 and we keep adding across all ages, we get the total population for a single row of female. And then we do the same for the same year for male row. And the sum of these two will give us the total population for the whole country in that year. We add female total plus male total. That's the whole idea. So that will be also the logic behind summing. Now instead of doing calculations in this messy table, we are going to create a clean workspace. I will call it the US population. This is where we will keep our totals, growth rate, and doubling time all in one place. And in this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate using the United States from 2020 to 2023. For your homework, you will do the same workflow for Canada or Mexico. Okay, now we're ready to start building totals using Excel formulas. Now I'm going to show you how to calculate the total population for a given country and year directly from the datasheet. I've already chosen my country and year. I'll look at the US population in 2020 and 2023. And I can see that there are two rows for this year, one for females and one for males. Across these rows, the column represents single ages, starting from age 0 and going all the way to the oldest ages, which is 100 plus. To calculate the total population for this year, I'm not going to add males and females separately. Instead, I'm going to sum everything at once. So first, I click on an empty cell where I want the total population number to appear. So I will have it in this US population tab. Let's first call this population growth. population growth. Then I will have the 2003, 23, and 2020. Okay, so I want it to appear here. So first I click on this empty cell, and I want the total population number to appear here. Now in the formula bar at the top, I type an equal sign, then I type the word sum, S-U-M, and then I type an open parenthesis. At this point, I stop typing. With my mouse, I now click and drag to highlight the entire block of cells, that contains population values for this year, 2023. That means I'll highlight all the age columns from youngest age from 0 to oldest age to 100 plus for this year. And once I highlighted it for year 2023, I highlighted the whole block, I release the mouse, and then close this parenthesis. Excel automatically fills in the range inside the sum formula for me. So this is the population of the United States in the year 2023. And for a nicer look, I will decrease decimals. So this many thousand people lived in the United States in 2023, which is about 343 million. Now I also need to find out the population of the United States in 2020 to calculate the population growth. I will repeat the exact same process for this year. I start by typing the equal sign and then type sum, and then open the parenthesis and move your mouse to the other tab and go and highlight. Scroll all the way to the left and start from the age 0 and highlight all the age groups, including men and women for 2020. So I will highlight all the way to the left for these two rows, female 2020, male 2020, and then close the parenthesis. So this is the US population, the year 2020, which is about 339 million people. Now that I have calculated the total population for the United States in 2020 and in 2023, I'm going to use those two numbers to calculate the annual population growth rate. Annual growth rate tells us how fast the population changes per year on average between 2 points in time. In this case, we are comparing 2020 and 2023. First, I remind myself how many years are between these two dates from 2020 to 23 is 3 years, so the number of years in the formula will be 3. Now I will click on an empty cell where I want the growth rate to appear. In the formula bar, I type an equal sign, and then I open a parenthesis and divide the population in 2003 by the population in 2020. This part of the formula tells Excel how much the population has changed overall between 2 years. Now I use the current symbol. I use the symbol, the little up arrow, which means raised to a power. After that, I type 1 divided by 3. This step spreads the total population change evenly across these 3 years. Finally, I subtract 1. This converts the results into a growth rate. I press enter or the return key. It will give me this number. All I need to do is to right click or double click on the cell and go to format cells and convert it to a percentage. The number I see now, 0.4, is the annual population growth rate. So now it's easier to read, and it tells me the average person change in the US population per year. between 2020 and 2023. So even if the number looks small, that is completely normal for population growth. I can easily say, just having these two data years, I can now confidently say the US population has increased on average 0.4% from 2020 to 2023. Okay, now that I have the annual population growth rate, I'm going to calculate something called doubling time. So the doubling time refers to how many years it would take for a population to double in size, assuming that it keeps growing at the same annual rate. So if the US population keeps growing at 0.4% every year, how many years would it take for the US population to double in size? I'll start by clicking on the empty cell next to this doubling time heading. This is the place where I want the doubling time to appear. And in the formula bar, I'll, as always, start by typing an equal sign. Then I type ln and then open the parentheses. And open parentheses, right, type 2, close the parentheses. This is a number. This part of formula is a constant, and it never changes, and you don't have to understand the math behind it. And then I type a division symbol. After that, I type again ln, open parentheses, and I will put 1 plus the population growth rate cell, which is B1 in my case. And then I will close the parentheses, and then I will click enter. When I press enter, the number that appears is the doubling time in years. So for better luck, I will again remove the decimals. To round it up, it just says that the US population would double in size with this annual growth rate in 176 years. Notice that if the growth rate is small, the doubling time can be very large. And that's not a mistake. Slow population growth means it takes a long time for a population to double. So the doubling time helps us understand the long-term implication of growth rates, even when year-to-year change looks small. We are going to move to the last part of the assignment, which is creating an age sex table. An age sex table shows how a population is distributed across age groups, separately for males and females. In our dataset, population is reported by single age, meaning age 0, age 1, age 2, and so on. Check these boxes. For this assignment, we are not going to keep every single age. Instead, we are going to group ages into a small group of broad age cohorts. For this homework, you must use exactly 4 age cohorts. So 0 to 14, 14 to 44, 15 to 44, 45 to 64, and 65 and older. So these are my 4 age cohorts. And I'll also have 2 sexes, females and males. I'm going to demonstrate this using the United States in 2023. For your homework, you'll do the same thing for Canada or Mexico. First, I go back to the datasheet and find 2 rows that correspond to my country, year, and sex. So I first need the year 2023 for females, and I need the sum of everything that I highlight here, 0 to 14. So now I locate it. I want to calculate the total number of females aged 0 to 14. To do that, I highlight all the cells for ages 0 through 14 in that row. I'll start here with equal sign and then type in sum, open a parenthesis, and go to data cell and do it here. Close the parenthesis and press the return key. So this is the number of females in this age cohort in the United States, which is about 30 million people. Now I will do the same for males. I'll type in, I'll start with equal sign, type sum, and then move to the data part, 2023, 0 to 14. This time I'll only do it for the male population. Oops. Okay, just to make sure that you highlight the entire thing, so 0 to 14, and then close the parentheses, and lastly press the return key. So this is the number of males, which is 31 million. Now I move to the second age cohort, 15 to 44. Let's start with the females. Sum, open a parenthesis, 15 to 44. So 15 to 44. 44. This is 44. Okay, this is the number. I'll do the same for men. Sum, and then 15. Scroll all the way to the left to locate 15 for male, 23 USA, 15 to 44. I will highlight from 15 to 44. To 44. Yeah. Now I close the parenthesis and press the return key. You've got the numbers now. 67 million women in this age range and 71 million men in this range. Now I will do this for the third age cohort, 45 to 64. Start with the women, 45 to 64. And then I'll do the same for the men, 45 to 64, and then close the parenthesis. Okay, now that I have 41 million women and 42 million men in this age group, the last cohort is the 65 plus, so I am repeating the same thing, sum and open a parenthesis, and go to female row, start with 65 till all the way to 100 plus on the right. And then I will close the parenthesis and press the return key. This is the number of women. And now I also need the number of men in this range. So scroll to 65, highlight the everything up until 100 plus. All right, so in this age cohort, there are 32 million women and 27 million men. As you see, almost in all age cohorts except 65 plus, there are more men in the United States than women. But if you notice that there are more women in the last cohort, that is something we can discuss later on. So this age sex table helps us quickly see whether a population is relatively young, middle age, or older. This table now summarizes the age and sex structure of the population using just 4 broad age groups. Remember, the values still in thousands, and that's exactly how they should remain.